We need liquidity so we can lease vehicles. We don't have to buy them. So that's what they're doing in South Africa. They need to do that elsewhere. My personal thoughts. All right, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, the brainchild of the African Export-Import Bank, is gathering partnerships and supporters towards the key event due later this year in Cairo, Egypt, ahead of the next roadshow. Scheduled for Nairobi, Kenya on Wednesday, the IATF were in Dubai last week and outlined the cooperation that's needed to promote an increased intra-Africa trade. Let's take some excerpts from this panel of speakers at the Dubai event.
Seriously, the AATB, I talked about the Africa Trade Bridges Program, envisages that when we talk about deeper economic integration between Arab countries, of which UAE is one, and Africa. But we have to start, we have to start by increasing the trade, albeit it is fast growing. I think UAE will be one of the top 5 trading partners of Africa today. And it's a conversation that we can begin to have about how to explore a free trade agreements between both regions. And that's Africa collectively already, instead of in different countries, and reduce the fragmented nature of the engagements today.
I think UAE is already in that process of discussion. His Excellency Dr. Thani, as you, the Minister of Foreign Trade, and His Excellency Wakili Mene, the Secretary General of Africa, AFCFTA, had several meetings already to talk about how they can work with each other, how can they discuss forms of trade agreement, etc. But you have to bear in mind, when you do these type of agreement, it's not only one country. You're talking about 54 countries that you seek their approval on trade barriers, trade regulation, etc. There is some progress. Hopefully, inshallah, there is also a committee that is being done. Detail I don't have, but there is progress is happening. But how far is it? I have no idea. But there is that connectivity already started and discussion have started already.
It is a Pan-African event, right? But it is open to global players, and I did speak about investment goods. So the structure of African trade today is characterized by, one, export of primary commodities, raw materials, in some cases African products, whether it is in mineral agriculture, are not even raw materials yet. They're very primary. If you think about cocoa is not a raw material for anything. So there is need for value addition, right? Secondly, due to our colonial legacy, the structure of our trade today is also directed to our historical, trade flows, even including the infrastructure routes. There is a need also, and the opportunity that exists is also to diversify the trade. And that's why one of the reasons we're here today to speak to the UAE community is to say, because we know that there are investment opportunities, there is the need to import investment goods into Africa. Even if we want to add value to cocoa, for instance, we need the manufacturing facilities, the equipment. Even if we want to integrate through rail and road and other forms of mobility, we need the contracting expertise that may not exist today. We need to be able to have options, and that's the reason we're opening it up we say that global players are invited. We cannot, and it's also a platform as we promote intra-African trade, to begin to get linked into global trade. The other question is how significant it is to broaden, or the AITF to broaden access to financing. And that's the reason I talked about the deals that we have done. I said between the first edition and the second edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, first in Cairo and Durban, we have concluded 74 about $4 billion worth of deals. Those deals, what we do as Afrexim Bank and ranking as one of the major syndication experts, on deals in Africa, is to finance those deals where there is financing required. Those deals on the continent and also it's also a form of business development for the bank, for African businesses, and for non-African businesses who are interested in financing African trade. It will definitely broaden it. When we do the B2B exchanges and the twinning, and bringing matchmaking and providing an environment to matchmake buyers and sellers, investment opportunities. I already talked about de-risking them through guarantees. But importantly, it's important to know that we also finance them, not just providing guarantees, but we also provide funding, credit, trade and project financing to some of those as a bank, and we're also able to leverage our position to attract other financiers and on liquidity into the projects. Our mandates, and it's a specific KPI of ours, is that for every $1 we leverage 4. The other question is to promote how IETF is to promote the integration of East Africa region into global value chains. I think I already answered that in promoting industrialization of our continent, in attracting partners to support the value addition. In fact, our interactions with the Arab countries under the Arab-Africa trade bridges is specifically linked to industries that involve high-skilled labor. And in doing those, we are able to not just import the investment goods, but we're also able to export products of Africa to the rest of the world.
Adding value to the products of Africa. We keep talking about raw materials, we keep talking about the basket of the world. But if we're going to add value right now, we're going to run out of time. In 2051, out of 4 people going to be walking this planet is going to be from the continent. The continent is not there just to support trading with the world, but also support trading within its own ecosystem. If you look at Asia, we have 4 or 5 geographical zones that enables you to produce. Most of Asians, for example, produce rice, and most of Asians produce cotton, and we share almost the same climate in the larger part of Asia, but annual trade between Asia is very, very strong. When we look at Africa, we have more than 13 different eco and geographical zones, from farms to cattle to mining to ports to desert to timber, and it's abundant. So the continent, ironically, is not trading within itself. Ship a car from Addis Ababa to Kinshasa, it's going to cost you $5,000. That's before supply chain challenges. Ship the same car from Addis Ababa to Tokyo, from Tokyo to Kinshasa, it's going to cost you $1,800.
Wow.
So DP World, again, Harb is bidding in the right place. We're not just bidding on Africa trading with the world, we're bidding on Africa trading with Africa. That's why we're building railways, because we know where the future is.
Out of BRICS conference, that officially have been UAE, Saudi, Argentina, Iran, and Egypt have been invited officially to be official members of BRICS. What they're going to call it as a name, that's not my responsibility. Yeah. But you can see that new economies are developing. And as Mr. Khalid said, we work with Africa, we work with other countries to build a win-win situation. It's not us. And I just want to quote, yesterday we had a meeting with His Excellency Abdullah Al-Saleh, and he said, we talk business after, but first we want to know how can we help these African countries. It's, the thinking in UAE, I'm not going to Africa to conquer Africa. We're going to Africa to work with Africa. How can we share the best practices here? How can we help our brothers and sisters? Ladies and gentlemen, we have history with Africa.
Big time.
We have relation with Africa. some families are already married to each other with Africa. So Africa is not new for us. They're our brothers and sisters. So the vision that the government has, how can we work with Africa? How can we help Africa rise? How can Africa become the major economy that it's supposed to be? So that's the vision of the government as well on this matter.